Hello everybody, once again I am Lehman Crafton, aka Zorvalachan Less Than Guru, and hopefully today will be our wrap up for the original Torg. So I took you through my experience with Torg, with the setting overall. I went very detailed in a series of videos about each of the realities that were connected with Torg. And then yesterday I kind of did the main core mechanic, how damage and wounds worked. Went through some of the things like the power push table and different success levels, interaction attacks, and how you didn't just have to shoot all the time. And if you did something, if you had even a face character or a character that liked to intimidate or taunt or trick somebody, that they could do that in battle, have a positive result for their side, not just wasting a turn doing something that wasn't damaging, but they could set up the bad guys to fail, make it easier for the good guys to hit them, etc. And you could get cards. It was a way to get resources back into your hand as you spent those. So that was kind of the general core mechanic. And today I kind of want to do a wrap up. I also want to do, if you're interested in Torg, almost all the books except for the main core book, which, hold on, the main core book are going to be available. Not going to be. They are available on Drive-Thru RPG. The core book, the original core book, is not. There was a revised and updated core book, or revised and expanded, maybe. That is available. That was when Kansas Jim, the actual Torg guru, the original Torg guru, he wrote and compiled a lot of books, and probably sort of like what I did when I showed you my binder that had all my rules. He kind of went through and smoothed things up and stuff, and that was a book that was published later, much later, after, I want to say 10 years after Torg ended, it was finally put out. But that is there, and it basically has most, if not the exact same rules, with the little tweaks here and there, so fully able to be done. For your cards, though, if you want your cards, I don't think the drama deck is on Drive-Thru RPG. What I believe you can do is you can get the basic Torg Eternity decks. You can purchase those, and those come, they've split that, where the card had the players on the one side and the Game Master and Initiative on the other side. They have divided those into two decks. I think that those would be able to work. Most of the cards are the same. What you would need to do is, some of the rules have changed, so you might need to have your Torg and maybe make a little piece of paper that if it's a drama, it does this. It doesn't do what it says on the actual card, and things like that. The other thing is the original Torg has more attributes, so they got rid of a couple of attributes, and because of that, there aren't as many of those +3 to a skill or attribute test. So before they had willpower, presence, and adrenaline. Now they only have willpower and presence. So the one that was willpower and adrenaline. Start over. The original Torg had willpower, presence, and adrenaline. Torg Eternity has adrenaline and willpower. So that presence card, the Game Master might take those attributes and split them amongst the two other cards. I think that should work, if not perfectly, very, very close, and the Game Master can then adjust things as they see fit. But I do think that it is a viable solution. It would actually work. So I will say that. The other things that might be on Drive-Thru RPG, if you're interested in a original Torg game and playing a campaign, have various other books that they had with it, which I will go through. So these first three books are kind of about the game and characters and such. So this first one's called the Character Collection, which all this is people sent in their characters, their actual played characters, and they bound it, and each of these has a run through of the character and then a sheet of the character stats and attributes. Some of these are perfectly fine for any Torg game. Some of these are doing that where Torg started going to camp. So you might look at this and go, okay, this concept is alright, This concept isn't. And just to show you, and again, every game master, every table is different. I just want to point out that some of these might not be for your table. Like this one, Montgomery Hall. I haven't heard it much recently, but there used to be the whole thing of Monty Hall Game Masters, where game masters who just gave, it was based off of an old game show. And Monty Hall Game Masters were game masters who just gave tons and tons and tons of stuff to the players. So this was a character that had tons and tons and tons of stuff. And they have other things. So there is a whole wide range of ready-made characters that could be NPCs that a game master could use. Then we have these, the Storm Knight's Guide to the Possibility Wars, which are different rules to make characters. I never really liked this. Like I said, I was really into do the template. You just put your 16 points, and 3 of them are already spent, and you at least have to have 1 in reality. Anything else goes. I always felt that was easy, but this is for those people that they didn't want to do something completely from scratch, but they didn't want the rigidness, I guess, of a character template, so this was kind of a middle ground. High Lord's Guide to the Possibility Wars is some tips and different things about realms, what different High Lords kind of like updated on them. This takes place later, towards the end of the war. Let's see when the copyright date was. So 1993, so the 3rd year out of a 5-year war, so midway. So a lot of things had changed. So this could be used for a game master to show what happened in the original Torg, but again, you don't have to do it because this is a 20, 30, over 25-year-old game that's already done and gone. So, but it does have kind of interesting things there. They did have 3 world books. So they had a Los Angeles, because Los Angeles, I believe, had been, they have it as Korth, Tharkold, Korth. They have various types of, oh yeah, sorry. That's where Tharkold ended up landing. So they have Korth and Tharkold. So kind of what's happening in Los Angeles after Tharkold came. I just had a little brain meltdown. Berlin was a weird thing. It was a mix of Nile and Tharkold, which are like 2 completely diametrically opposed type cosms that ended up in an interesting mix zone. And then Tokyo, which was a Nippon Tech supplement. And again, all of these also have templates in the back. So even if you're a player or game master, you can say, hey, you can use these templates. So there's that. There were also 3 different 1, 2, and 3 Infiniverses, which were a condensed version of that black binder right there. Right there is the big Infiniverse newsletters that came out. They kind of condensed the information, and again, this is kind of how the official timeline went on. So depending on how you take it or leave it, but it does have. Like here's where that elf, dragon rider is, and so they have different characters and different NPCs, how realms expanded, little adventure hooks, and things like that was available on these. Now again, like I said, I got these way late. I got pretty much all of these books here. I ended up with around 2000. I had been game mastering Torg on and off for 7 years already. So I didn't do everything that was in here, but these did give me good ideas. So I could find, a character template, and it didn't matter how my world went, that character template is valid, in any of those realms that it's assigned to, and things like that. So you can always pick and choose what you want and good ideas and stuff like that. Now here I want to show you is all the adventures that were published for Torg, the original. So the first 3, like I said, these, if you want to play original Torg, or if you even want to play Torg Eternity and do some converting, these are the best. The Relics of Power trilogy, and this one also came with the handy Game Master screen, which I don't know if you actually get the a fold-out printout, but if you can, tape it to some cardboard, because this is one of the best Game Master screens out there. And then the other three books, great adventure, and again, with minimum what I would consider easy conversion. Other people might have varying level of difficulty in conversion, but these can convert to Torg Eternity easy, and it's different than Relics of Power Redux. You can have the same Storm Knights go through both, change a couple of names on certain artifacts, two completely different adventures that your players will not have clues on what, you know, one will really not help them with the other one. And then this was the other books, varying degree of usefulness and also varying degrees of, how should I say it, critical reviews, or various forms of review scores, or, you know, like Rotten Tomato if it's fresh, or if it's the rotten type thing, scores I guess you could consider. But they go through the whole time of Torg. So that was the first one. The Relics of Power World's End was the last one. There's a lot of people who don't like this. I did use it, and I changed it a lot, and I changed everything a lot, and I had it work. This was a hard one to do, but I was able to do it without actually having the war end, which is telling, I guess. But you had everything from like this Full Moon Draw, which is a bunch of small adventures set in Rorsch. This one here is a great adventure that I never got to. It's always in the back of my mind, but I read it, and every time I read it, I just have tons of, like, if this isn't actually something that my players ever go through, it's something that is always in the back of the mind as going to happen at some point. This was written by Shane Hensley, the creator of games such as Deadlands and Savage Worlds. He also became the head lead person for Torg Eternity, for that core book, not for the whole line. But this was his start, so this is a very good book. And then various things like these were full adventures. This one was a weird little thing. High Lord of Earth is deceiving. It's not actually a High Lord of Earth. It's another darkness device that comes down and tries to make a realm, but it's not Earth's darkness device. So that little High Lord of Earth makes it sound a little. It's not exactly correct. When Axioms Collide is an interesting one. Torg Eternity has a completely different adventure called When Cosms Collide, so that's a little different. And you just have a bunch of things. This Cassandra's Files and Queen's Wrath were another one that had a bunch of smaller, either just ideas or small act adventures instead of full-blown adventures. So you had a lot of material. I mean, when I say a lot, I don't mean D&D 3rd edition or even 2nd or 1st edition adventures. But it is a good place to start. And even if you're doing Torg Eternity and you have a bunch of, like, up on my top shelf there, you have a bunch of Torg Eternity books and source books, you can always throw these in. The realms did not change very much. A couple of them changed a little bit. One changed big in location. One beginning change, a couple of beginning change actually. Like 3 had various differences, but the other ones were practically in the same place. So a lot of these could still be used in your Cosmverse, which you make for yourself, and you don't have to go exactly how the official Torg or Torg Eternity goes. So my big wrap-up is this. Torg is a wonderful game, in my opinion. Original Torg was one of those very few games that just caught me and kept me, and has kept me for 30 years, or close to 30 years, 28 because I started a couple years late. I admit I was a Palladium fan, and Rifts is what had me, but I didn't even know about Torg at that time. As soon as I was introduced to Torg, I fell in love with it as a player. I read it as a game master and loved it, and it's just a love that's gone with me this entire time, and it has continued through Torg Eternity. Now, a couple of things that are, or at least one thing that is controversy that I told you to remember yesterday, and that is the fact that possibilities and experience are the same thing. And people have argued, and they can believe that, and it may be at their tables it's how it works, but they see that as it doesn't alleviate the player's responsibility. It's the player's responsibility to do heroic things, to do cinematic things, and that can get you more XP or possibilities. Because here at the end of the chapters, each chapter, it does say, here's the baseline for possibilities. If they didn't do these other things, it goes down to here, and if they did these extra things, it goes up here. And Original Torg was old school, and I do have 3 full videos on my old school versus new school mentality. So that's why I did those, is so when I have reviews like this, I can say that's why I'm saying what I'm saying. But what I'm saying is, I'm still at a point where I don't know if I like one or the other. I like a combination, and I do completely understand both points of view. Old Torg, Original Torg, if you didn't show up, you didn't get experience. If you joined in after other people had started, you joined in with the new character. Here's, what type of character you're looking for. Oh, I'm thinking, a cybernetic knight. Okay, here's a Knight Templar. Boom, there you go. Fill out, put a few ads in here. Here's a couple of miracles you can cast, and let's go. Hit the ground running. Boom, 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 and get right into it. And that character was able to participate even if the other characters had been playing for months, years, literal decades. Yes, that you can do that. And if a character gets so far advanced that you think, okay, they're high, so high, do what I did. They become NPCs. Your players then get new NPCs, and they're at a higher level. They're the ones handing out the missions. They've got the experience. They can send your new characters that, and then it brings in a tie. A tie-in with your new characters. My player, and your players might be different, but my players loved it when I would have that NPC that was a former player character come in. And he or she would be the one that comes in and says, I got a mission for you, this is happening. Or it's hey, this Storm Knight group went off and they haven't been heard of. Those were our player characters. They're in trouble. We need, and it gives a little more, it gets the players involved a little more, because that's their previous characters on the line type thing. And as long as you as a game master play those characters as NPCs close to how the players do it, and you have that trust with your players, it usually works out well. Where they can appreciate that, no, they're not that character anymore, but that character got to that higher position because of what they did. So that is something for the old school, that you didn't have to keep everybody equal. In Torg Eternity, everybody gets 5 experience points at the end of every act. If you have new people come in, they're at the same XP. If somebody misses a game and you give XP out, they come back with that XP. Everybody's equal. I understand both sides. As long as you communicate with your players and you as a group communicate and figure out what's best for you, I think either way in either game should work. Saying, oh, it was that way in Old Torg and I wish it was that way in New Torg. Well, the core mechanic's exactly the same. I don't think that it causes a problem. A Torganized play a Facebook group online that has different game masters and different players interacting in it. They do it as you get the 5 XP only for the adventures that you go on, and I haven't seen a big problem with that. I've played a couple of adventures and I've read what's going on, and it doesn't seem like it's that big of a problem, which I never thought it would be. Now, I personally divorced experience from possibilities when right before Torg Eternity came out and I was doing an original Torg, because of what I felt wasn't player responsibility. What I felt was player selfishness. And if you remember yesterday, I told you to remember what that drama card was. So that drama card is, you can spend it now, and it can be used like a hero card or a possibility, and you roll, and it explodes on 10s and 20, but whatever you roll, it counts as a minimum of a 10 without the explosion. And you can add that to whatever you originally rolled, and then use that to find your bonus number. So it was always almost going to give you some type of bonus to use that, instead of spending a possibility. But if you kept that until the end of the adventure, and at the end of the adventure you turned it in, you got 3 possibilities. So by not spending 1, you get 3 at the end of the adventure. And I had players who would get 3 of those and never use them, and let other characters die because no skin off my back, and I get 9 experience at the end of the adventure. That means I can boost my character a lot. And yes, as a game master, I could have said, hey, you're not playing fair. But those are the rules. And if you are in a Torg is about player responsibility, then you as a game master shouldn't be having to babysit. And there was one thing that as a game master I thought was great. The player who played the card thought it was great. The other players hated it because they lost. Was the Living Land starts off in the east and west coast, and at some point there's an adventure, it's in one of the smaller publications, might even be in one of the Infiniverses, where they grow the realms, and all they need is one stele to connect, and the Storm Knights go and they're going to stop this stele from being activated and connecting the western and eastern part of the Living Land. And that's what the scenario's set up for, the Storm Knights, to prevent something this big. Well, one of the cards in the deck is called Hero Fails. And the hero plays it, and they get 3 possibilities, and then later, at some point in time, the Game Master says, you failed when they succeeded. They can roll, and whatever they roll, the Game Master is just like, you failed. And a player, as soon as he saw it, Hero Fails, he gives it to me. He takes the 3 possibilities, because that's 3 points of experience. And then when his character was the one who was deemed to be the one to rip it up, and went to rip up and keep the stele from being activated, you failed. And you can think, oh, Lehman, you're a mean game master. Why did you choose that time? Because that is what that card is giving a lot. The player did it. So why shouldn't I make the failure be at the most opportune moment for that type of thing? So in my world, the East and West Living Land actually connected. And now it's one big Living Land in the middle, and then the little Canada piece up at the top. Other game masters would have handled it differently, but I was also in a mindset of, in all of these, when they had at the little back, I might need an actual... They have the little response form that you fill in. It's my opinion that anytime you have something like this, most games will have the good guys win. So if your table doesn't end up with the good guys win, you now are no longer on the same railroad that the official game is going. And that's why I say make the game your own. Every world's canon. don't worry about the other world, because on the few of these that I did, that I had, one of them being this, while it wasn't an actual adventure, one of them being the unification of the East and West living land connecting, and the other being High Lord of Earth, my parties failed. And the High Lord of Earth actually is like, if it happens this, if this happens, and this happens. And there's a series, and I won't spoil it, but there's a series of events that can happen. And there's a point where there's like a false end, like the party can do something, the Storm Knights can do something, and they might think that they win, but if they don't follow through with it, then they actually don't. And that's what happened with my group. And it wasn't me trying to be sneaky. It wasn't me going, haha, you did that, hero fails. It was just the party as a group talked amongst themselves. And I'm here letting them do it, not talking. And they convinced themselves that they had finished. And then they left. But that wasn't the end. They didn't put the, I guess you could say, the final nail in the coffin. They just accepted that they had done enough. And that came back. That's very different than what happened in the official Torg, because officially, when you have those responses, a lot of game masters would have been like, oh, make a mind check to remember something, or hey, do you happen to have an idea card there? And while that might be good in some groups, I like my players to think for themselves. I don't like having to tell them everything as a game master. There needs to be risk that goes with the rewards, in my opinion, and you can look at my other videos and understand where I'm coming from. So that's why I split the two. I allowed those possibilities to be used only as possibilities, so you could get the possibilities and you could use them to soak and etc. But you didn't get those as experience, because that's what people were doing. They were hoarding those drama cards. The only times they would use them is if they had the glory, and then everybody, including themselves, got 3. So on those times, they were happy to play it. But on a lot of times, and other players would be selfless. They would be using, the I'm a good guy, my compatriots, I should help them out. I'm using a drama card now because it could save somebody. And the awards based on these were, did you succeed these things or not individual rewards of experience. And yes, you could do that. But if you go by the way the rules are, if you're a very big stickler and you're saying the old rules did player responsibility, I disagree with that, because it also brought out greediness of some people, not everybody. And I'm not even saying the people that were greedy were wrong, because that's what the game system told them, was hold me and I give you 3 back. You use me as 1 now, but I give you 3 back. So, that's the game system talking. So by splitting the two and giving experience as this, and then having the possibilities come from drama cards, and from that, and then what I did was at the very end of the adventure, your possibilities got reset. And I didn't do it as the 10, because the 10 is a lot. I played that so small, I would have to look at my updated rules to see what I did. But if you had those dramas at the end, you could get a few more drama points, possibility points for your next adventure. So it would give you something for that, but not XP, because a lot of people were doing that. They would have, like I said, literally 3 drama cards that gave them 9 XP. Now they could get a couple of mid skills up, or they could get one of their high skills that they have at an 8. They could get that, they could use that as a boost of a 9, when normally if you're just getting 1 or 2 possibilities, you might want to save it to soak or boost your action, or you're only going to use it to get a 1 or a 2. It's rare, I mean, not impossible, but it's rare that you would save those. So if you turned them all in, got all that XP at one time, then you had a bigger pool. So that is one thing to think about. If you go through old Torg and you're using the old rules, do realize there are certain things that you might want to change. And again, if you're on the new school side, you might say, okay, everybody does get the same possibilities. It doesn't matter if you're here. It doesn't matter if you're sick at home, or you have prior responsibilities, or even you're in college and you decide to go to a frat party. Everybody gets the same. If that's good for you and your table, great. If it's good for your table is you have to be there on time, bright-eyed and bushy-tailed, and sit the entire time, and then you get to, as long as you and your group figure that out, go with it, make Torg your own. Torg has plenty of adventures, and I will say one of the things I just kind of had yesterday, like within 5 minutes after I did my other video, that I thought about is these adventures in Torg Eternity. Old Torg, the values, min and maxes, in original Torg were a little higher than in Torg Eternity. So that's why you have to do a little bit of adjustments. There have been people that said that it was that you're not as heroic. Completely proven false. Their opinion is because numbers are higher here, it means people were more heroic. Even though all the numbers for Storm Knights, Stormers, threats, villains, everything is lower, that somehow that's less heroic. And when objectively simulations have been played, when how the game actually works with the cards and with the rolls and with the new way that the threats work, because here everybody gets 4 wounds. In Torg Eternity they could get various amounts of wounds. Minions don't even have wounds, so as soon as you hit them and do a wound, they are taken out. They are no longer in the game. Here, even minions take the 4 wounds, even if they're Ords. They have that easier track when I was showing you that damage chart, but they still take 4 wounds, so they're harder. You can be you can be just, if not more. I think after simulations were done, after rolls were done on both systems against the same thing, Torg Eternity, the Lone Storm Knight versus this same type of group of threats, Torg Eternity always ended up with that Storm Knight winning, or at least not losing. In Old Torg, it was stacked against the Storm Knight. So don't believe that. But what I wanted to say is, since these stats are a little bit higher, these adventures might work for higher experienced characters. So in Torg Eternity, there's no types of levels or anything like that. Torg Eternity does have what they call alpha level, beta level, gamma, etc. And there's a really solid core of alpha level threats and alpha level adventures. And there's a pretty decent amount of beta adventures with alpha threats and the occasional beta threats. But I'm wondering, since things are higher in here, just because the system as itself was higher, if instead of doing a direct or doing a conversion, if you just ignore the extra stats, because they added a couple stats, but you keep all the skills the same, and you just use these numbers, these adventures might be really good late beta, maybe even gamma adventures. So if you know Torg Eternity, and you still watched all these videos and are watching this videos, and you're trying to think, what can I use? And I told you about how you can use a lot of the setting books and stuff for flavor. You might, and I haven't tested it, but you might actually be able just to use these pretty much as written without modifications for your higher experienced Storm Knight groups, just because of the stat blocks being a couple of points higher, because they just for some reason decided to make them lower. But they did it across the board, so these haven't. It's just the thought of using old material with new things. So that's pretty much what I have to say about Torg. And a little bit here and there about Torg Eternity, which I think is important, especially if you want to play this game. You don't want to do PDFs, but you want to try out this type of system. So, original Torg. Wonderful game. Great and easy for players. More difficult for game masters. Game masters had to know everything, where a player only had to know their realm, basically. And if their character died or they changed characters for whatever reason and they chose a new realm, then they know what the new reality is. And they go with that. But the game master had to know everything. But there's lots of books. There's lots of game master help. There's the Storm Knight's Guide for the Storm Knight. If your players want to do something and you as a game master want to allow it, like I said, I never did. I was full templates, the entire thing of Torg Eternity. It start from scratch, no archetypes, which is weird. I still quite haven't figured out why, besides the fact that I did allow my players to do any of the skills listed as trained, even if they didn't have an ad in it. So maybe it was just that extra little thing there. But wonderful game. I played it on and off for at least 25 years, 1992 to 2017, when Torg Eternity came back through the Kickstarter for the backer PDFs. And it's one of those games that's great, multi-genre, cinematic, not heroic, cinematic. Every game master's game is canon, so you can change things all you want, and if somebody says no, that's not canon, you can point to where it is canon. And it just has a lot of tools and stuff for the game masters to get, and you can take out subsystems that you don't like and just not have them in your game, and it doesn't break down because each subsystem is none of them work off of each other because they're pretty complete separate ones. So I am Lehman Crafton, aka Zorgalachan, and tomorrow hopefully we will I actually have a Torg game tomorrow, so it might be the next day. I might have a day off where I actually get to play Torg, and then maybe on Friday I will introduce Torg Eternity. So until then, I hope you have a good day, and I will catch you later.